Welcome back to another episode of Play by Play presented by Win or Lose Sports. Visit us online at winorloseshow.com and all social media at Win or Lose Show. Today's guest is a special guest of mine, NBA legend, Big Three and NBA analyst, Jim Jackson. Welcome to the show, Jimmy.
What's up, Jess? What's up, baby? How you doing?
Pretty good. It's been a crazy NFL season for the Cowboys, so I want to steer away from my episode. I've been doing Cowboy episodes for
what?
Since the season started,
it's like the Lakers,
it's frustrating.
It's like the Lakers. It's like the Lakers. You go talk Cowboys, Lakers all the time, and Yankees all the time. Win, lose, or draw. I'm a Steelers fan, so we going through. It's gonna be interesting to see if Tomlin stays with Ohio State. Justin Fields. I know. And here's the thing. You say, what's the mindset? Because Justin got thrust in there because of the injury, played well, won 3, lost 3. What does that do for his confidence? We don't know yet. What happens if Russell gets hurt or not playing well? You reinsert Justin. Where's his headspace at? You always say, be a professional. But until you're in that situation, you really don't know. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic for us moving forward, bro. We just couldn't stretch the field. The field.
Right. But as a Cowboys fan, I appreciate the Steelers now because I'm dating a Steelers fan. So
yeah.
I've been watching a lot of Steelers games. And
I got you.
I must say, Steelers look good with Justin Fields on as a quarterback.
Yeah, but we couldn't stretch the field as much. Like when we played Dallas, right? It was some opportunities to get first down late in that game or in the fourth quarter to extend the time of possession, but also extend our offensive possession, and some reads he didn't make. You say, well, why does that matter? Well, because maybe at the end of the game, you don't have enough time because you extended those plays earlier.
Right.
You missed those first down opportunities, but you had the punt. That Dallas doesn't have the time to score at the end. So the game itself, you just can't say, okay, they won it at the end with the catch. It's plays that led up to that left time on the clock to be able to do that in my mind.
I was expecting Dallas to lose that game just because of the way Justin Fields and the Steelers were playing offensively. Because our defense
ran the ball good, though, against us.
We did. But you know what's crazy about that is that Rico Dowdle averages 5 yards a carry for the season, between 4 and 5 yards a carry. That's league average. The thing is, we don't run the ball enough.
Yeah.
We put the ball in Dak's hands way too much. He has too much control over the offense. That's why he fails a lot. That's why he throws interceptions a lot, because he's got too much on his plate. When we have a running back who can average 4 to 5 yards a carry, that'll lighten his load, make the offense a little more efficient.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like when Zeke was at his best at the time, early on in his career. I get it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get away from that. I hate talking Cowboys right now. Just because of that game last week was so embarrassing against the Lions. So you had a extensive NBA career, extensive 14 years. That's longevity. You went into broadcasting. What was the mindset going into broadcasting? Was that something that you thought of before you retired, or is it something that kind of fell on your plate?
Luck, bro. Seriously, because I didn't, I did when I was playing, had a radio talk show in Portland. I did a radio show when I was in Dallas, little TV there too. Early in my career, throughout my career, when I didn't make the playoffs, I would do TNT, halftime, or halftime segments sometimes, or ESPN during the playoff periods, talking about basketball, but never something concentrated. I never thought about actually doing the job that I'm doing now. But when I retired in 2006, I got approached by a broadcasting agent that had been watching for a while, who approached my basketball agent, my then basketball agent, to ask would I be interested in looking into broadcasting. And from there, it kind of took off. I mean, it was me. I was in the mindset of ESPN or NBA. They were like, well, once you take a look at this new network, it's going to be 51% owned by Fox. It's college, it's Big Ten, it's your backyard. But just my hesitation was I've been away from college for so long. How do I kind of get back into that mindset? I don't know. But once I did the interview, went and talked to him, I said this could be something very special because you get in on ground floor, and the rest is kind of history from there. My
Right.
broadcasting career that started in '07.
And from there, you went and CBS, the Big Three. What's the experience like with I mean, I've been to a couple of Big Three games, and the experience is different from the NBA.
Oh,
The brand
totally.
of basketball is a lot different from NBA basketball.
Well,
It's backyard basketball.
no,
What we're
it
used
is.
to doing
Two
at.
things. Two things.
Mm-hmm.
One, I don't work for CBS. I work for the Big Three, even
Okay.
though it's on CBS. It's like when we
Okay.
do the NCAA tournament. I'm with TNT, even though sometimes we come on CBS.
Right.
Our
Okay.
TNT crew does that. CBS crew sometimes comes on TNT. So I work directly with Q. But here's the difference. Yes, it's physical. Yes, it's innovative, which needs to be very important. You got to understand why. Early in the days of the ABA,
Mm-hmm.
the NBA was like the league, the professional league. The ABA was
Right.
viewed upon as a gimmick league or guys that couldn't play, but you had some of the best talent in the ABA. But during that process in the ABA, what they were able to do, they had to figure out how to engage the fan. So
Mm-hmm.
you had cheerleaders, you had
Right.
music bands, you had all this kind of stuff going on in the arena that you really didn't have at NBA games. You had the invention of the 3-point shot. You had the slam
Mm-hmm.
dunk contest. You had all this
Right.
stuff that eventually the NBA took.
Ah. Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
when you look at the 3-on-3 aspect, yes, Cube could have came in and said, we're going to play a typical 3-on-3, which they play in international.
Right.
But they needed to add something else to it. Besides having the talent, the game and the atmosphere and everything has to be fan friendly, including
Mm-hmm.
prices.
Right.
So watching him innovate and change and with Jeff Quatnitz, the structure of the game and how it's played, because it was really physical the first 2 years. I
Yeah.
mean, it was hard to get to 50 points.
Yeah.
Games would stretch out for 2 hours.
Yep. Yep.
Slowly, they began to figure out ways to allow you to play physical but keep the game moving.
Mm.
You know, the 4-point shot ended up coming in.
Yeah.
Bring the fire when you play one-on-one and contest a foul call. All these little nuances sound crazy until you implement them in the right system, and then you watch it and you're like, oh
Yep.
shit, that make a lot of sense.
Yeah. 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 And you see some of that stuff in the NBA now. When you look at the 3-point contest, now there's a 4-point shot
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
3-point contest coming
hmm
from looking
But
at the Big
they
Three.
won't give. I mean, and I love the NBA, but they won't give Ice Cube and them the credit for it.
I know they won't, and I know Ice Cube is fighting to get that notoriety from the NBA because to me, this is something that the NBA can look at and say, okay, these are guys who can potentially be on our rosters, or that who retire from our rosters, so we can send and say, hey, we have these guys available to play for the Big Three. There's
Well,
so
I would
many options.
always, my biggest dream would be for the Players Association and the Big Three to work together, Retired Players Association, because now you have a meeting point in the middle
Yep.
with like-minded individuals, because now you're included within the structure of All-Star games, NBA
Mm-hmm.
finals, NBA playoffs. The Big Three has an integral part in that. Promoting what's going to happen in the summer. You have players who still want to play that could go and play in the summer. You can play international ball with regards to taking a select group of Big Three players, all
Mm.
stars, so to speak, and maybe bring, like Cube tried this year, and I talked
For the
about it
Olympics.
before, barnstorm against the international 3-on-3 teams and just
Yeah.
play for about a month.
Okay.
It's so many avenues you can take this because you're not in competition with the NBA. You play at a
Not at all.
different time of year. You're not going to have the wherewithal marketing wise to players, but I think I truly believe it's a great marriage between it because you're actually utilizing former NBA players, international players, former college players, but it all feeds into basketball and it all
Mm-hmm.
promotes the sport. So that's just my pipe dream, but we'll see what happens.
Right. Talking about the evolution of basketball itself, the high school game, the college game, and the pro game are three different games. Period.
Yep.
When you look at the brand of basketball in the pro game, it's different from where it was when you played. This
As
is a
it
totally
should.
different basketball
As
game.
it should.
Right. Right. And a lot of people look down on it. I don't look down on it. I just think it's a different type of basketball, and we should appreciate that type of basketball. And that's the reason why there's longevity, like LeBron James playing for 20 plus years.
Well, I mean, but if the game didn't evolve, we'd still be playing like Bob Cousy and Bill Russell in the 60s.
Yeah, we don't
Okay,
want that.
because
Right.
each generation the game has to evolve. It
Yeah.
went from what we saw in the 60s to 70, more free-flowing style, getting out and scoring a lot of points in the 70s. You had a lot of parity with championship teams, multiple championship teams in the 70s. But in the 80s, it pared back, began to get more physical.
Yep.
Okay. And it was only so many championship teams that were Boston Lakers, Houston won it, Philly won it. You see what I'm saying? It was like those were the teams that consistently won, but the game was different than it was in the 70s. Game was different in the 90s. 2000. So when I'm calling games and I'm judging the players, I tend not to overstep the fact that these young men and women are playing now only know what's in front of them. Okay, so a Ja Morant watched Steph Curry play when he was younger.
Right.
Okay, Trey Young watched Steph. He
Right.
watched the game from that visual. 3-point shooting, spread the court. That's what they know.
Right.
I can't expect to go in and say, no, bro, you need to play. We played at the park or in the gym or, in somebody's backyard and grind it out and post up. They have no reference point. Just like I didn't have a reference point in the 90s of the guys in the 70s, even though I respected them.
Right. Yeah.
But I couldn't play like them. Because the game that was being played now was being played from this prism. And that's what is happening with our young men and women. And as older people, individuals, a lot of times, well, I don't like it. Well, you didn't like hip hop when it came in the late 80s and 90s either.
Right.
NWA, Dre, you had Pac, you had Big. The old hip hop heads was like, man, what is this? It's no different.
Yeah.
So,
and I never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
Like is the evolution of music,
everything.
Evolution of basketball, evolution of how we raise our kids.
So let me ask you this. How old are you?
I'm 47.
Okay, what's your favorite, John? What's your favorite era of music?
80s, 90s.
Okay, so that was a period where you were actually maturing as a young man, going through stuff and, evolving, learning, growing. So it has a nostalgic value to you, right?
Right.
That's how people are about sports. Oh, man, in the 80s and 90s, when I was growing up, these were the players, and this is so they can't let go of that.
Right. And I say that sometimes too. I say, okay, Jordan was this and Scotty was this, and we had people like Dennis Rodman who did this on the court and he was unstoppable on defense. And Jordan, if he played in this era, he would average this.
Yeah.
And you can't say that really.
Can't do it, bro.
You can't say that because that's crossing a line as far as a era. Just like Bill Russell can't say that he would average 20 rebounds in the 90s because you're crossing eras.
Well, he might have. I mean, Ben Wallace and those guys got close. Andre Drummond at times got close. 17. Did. He probably. Here's the difference. Like people say, well, Steph couldn't play back in the day, in the 80s or 90s because it was too physical. I said, okay. So, Muggsy Bogues, D. Brown, Dana Barrows, Michael Adams, Spud Webb, all these guys that played back then. You saying Steph couldn't play. Now, he wouldn't be the Steph that we see today because back then, if you shot 2 to 3 3-pointers a game, that was a lot. His game would be different than it was now. So you can't, that's why the argument, you can't take Steph and say, put him back in the late 80s, 90s. His game wouldn't be the same. Just like you couldn't take Shaq, okay, as dominant as he was then, and put him in the game now and say he'd still be dominant. He'll be a totally different player by how he was raised and brought up and taught how to play. He would be, in my opinion, more like Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
Than Shaq of the 90s.
Exactly. That's the difference in a lot of people's opinion is the big man. Like there are no big men who play down low, who play in the post anymore. Well, you don't need that anymore, do you? There's an inside-out game. When you look at Denver, you have Jamal Murray who throws it in to Joker. Joker throws it out to the shooters, Michael Porter.
But Joker mainly a lot of times is off the block or free throw line extended,
mm-hmm.
or he's bringing it up initiating offense because you want space.
He's moving because there's constant movement and constant spacing. Yes.
Now that's where philosophy's different. Zach Edey, I think, is going to be a very good player for Memphis. Why?
Yes.
Because that's how they play. When they had Steven Adams, when they had Zebo, they opened it up a little bit more by shooting the ball better. Okay. But in true essence, they like to grind you out.
Okay.
I think Zach Edey is going to be, I got a chance to cover him for 4 years, a heck of a player for them. They're going to play a little bit differently because their mindset in Montreal, how they want to play, is different than everybody else's. They still want to shoot the three, but they still want to have it big to rim protect and to get some baskets down low.
Right, and I thought that would be the concept for Minnesota when they got Rudy Gobert. He's not a great offensive player, but he can stand down there, down low, and be in the paint, be a presence in the paint offensively. But then again, on defense, he can be as dominant as any other big man in the league, or more dominant.
But you know the difference is you can throw it to Zach Edey, he can make a play and go. So you're going to have to try to help somehow. With Rudy, you're not going to do that.
Right.
See, and then when Zach gets it, his IQ is good enough and his passing is really good and understanding of the game that he can make plays out of the post. Now, not to say they're going to always double team him because they don't want to give up 3-point shots, but he's savvy enough to be able to, if I don't have the shot and I feel the presence, I can get it off. Whereas Rudy, I don't care if Rudy tests the ball down low. I ain't going, you go one-on-one. I don't care if you posting up a guard. We not going to help.
It's not a priority.
No, not a priority.
Yeah. Now, when you look at other teams who have big men, but they are expanded big men, just like talking about the Celtics, Porzingis, who is not the typical big man, he's the unicorn, as they said. Boston is a team. Well, back 5 years ago when Brad Stevens was head coach, Boston was a team that I looked at as this is a great brand of basketball. They move the ball, everyone touches the ball, and anyone can score offensively. This is when they had Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
That's when they had the little guy that went to Charlotte that just retired. Kemba Walker.
Yeah, Kemba Walker, yep.
So they had different players who can move within the offense. Now it's a different type of game when you got Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum up top and everybody's spread out. Porzingis can do the same thing. He has the ball up top and everybody spreads out. When you look at Boston's offense, do you think that's an efficient offense, a way to win? I know they won a championship last year. And I'm not.
But I think you answered your question right there.
It's a championship. Is it a championship brand of basketball?
Not only did they win it, but they dominated.
They did.
They dominated the whole season. 64 wins.
Yeah,
they won by an average of double digits.
Yeah,
they lost one game in the finals. They dominated, and you know why? You had 5 shooters on the court.
Yeah.
Okay, but also what you're missing too is, I think, a valid point: defensive versatility. You have guys that can guard multiple. So when you switch, you really don't have a mismatch anywhere on the court. So a lot of teams want to emulate, like they wanted to emulate Golden State in the shooting, but you needed to have Clay, Steph, like Draymond, in order for it to really work. Right. Yeah, we know you want to shoot it, but the way they play, it's impossible to duplicate because you don't have that kind. That's why Kevin Durant fit in seamlessly, because he can play well without the ball.
Right.
Same thing with Boston. Teams want to get bigger on the perimeter, have shooting around, but the skill set in which the Boston players have crossed the 5, a lot of teams can't have. So you can have a similarity to what Boston is doing, but because of their makeup of their team and the individual talents, it's tough to duplicate it, even though you may try.
And the typically people are saying, well, they play a lot of one-on-one basketball. They don't play team basketball. It's a lot of one-on-one. Jason Tatum one-on-one. Not true at all. It's just their type of basketball. They move the ball differently than any other team that you've seen in the past who won championships like this.
Well, just like they said, small ball wasn't going to work for Golden State. And how many? They have 4 titles?
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever something is introduced new form of hip hop, it's always, I'm picking away. This doesn't, based on it. But then when it works, well, still that was an anomaly. That no, that their way works. Memphis, the way they play works. The
Mm-hmm.
way Denver play, that works for them. Okay. Now you just try to fine tune it and get the pieces that fit in there that will help you ultimately win a championship. So I love the creative mindset of Brad Stevens, who I got to cover when he was at Butler. And we're going to have 5 individuals
Yeah.
that you can't help off of, but they can also guard on the other end of the court.
Right. Now, talking about Boston, we have Philadelphia, who just got uh Paul George.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Sixers, uh, and then now you have New York, the Knicks, who just got
Mm-hmm.
Cat. Where do you see this top 4, and who's under Boston?
Well, on paper, I believe Philly has the deepest roster in the league on
Mm,
paper
okay.
because not just the starting 5, but then you re-signed Kelly Oubre and also you brought back Kyle Lowry. You brought in Caleb Williams. Okay. Then you end
Mm-hmm.
up bringing in a Reggie Jackson and an Eric Gordon and an Andre Drummond.
Oh wow.
You tell me a roster that has that depth. Now, depth can also be a hindrance because you only go play so many players. But
Right.
in the case of Philly, because of the injury history of Embiid and also Paul George, you need
Mm-hmm.
that depth.
Right.
He's going to come into play right now with Paul with the bone bruise or whatever.
Yeah.
So on paper, this is a team to me that's right behind because they're deeper than New York. New
Okay.
York has that caveat. They play so hard and so
Yeah.
gritty, and they
Yeah.
win games they're not supposed to. How Cat fits in with that to provide that spreading of the court,
Mm-hmm.
you lose something with the hustle, the playmaking of Hartenstein on that second unit. Mitchell Robinson is a very important piece with
Yeah.
regards to when you have to play against a Milwaukee or a Philly, his health,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. He was out.
So
He was like some key games last year.
key games
Yeah.
of being able to, and this is a New York team that was hampered, that was injury prone, but how they played and they had the right pieces at the right time that played, came up a little short,
Mm-hmm.
but that molded. Now, here's the thing. Now you got to play with expectations too. Same thing with
Yeah.
OKC. How do you play? Well, if you talk to Knicks fans, they went to the finals last year, it felt like, but they didn't. It's got the
Yeah.
second round. But
Right.
how do you now deal and play with the expectations? So it's a lot of things. That's the beauty about the season. You got to
Yeah.
weave your way in and out of injuries, of expectations, of off shooting at night, and player combinations, and then finally get to the end and see where you're at.
Yeah. You got 82 games to worry about,
Mm-hmm.
not just college 31 games, 32 games, 34
Yep.
games. 82 games to worry about. So that early season is sometimes it can be key. Sometimes you're not worried about that. Because
Yeah.
when I look back at early Chicago Bulls back in 98, when Scotty was out for the first 30 games because of contract issues and foot surgery, they were worried. But at the same time, they were not worried because they knew when Scotty was coming back, he was ready to play. And so then they took on when Scotty came back, they said, okay, let's put it in full gear. And now we're heading to that playoff run. You had experience in the NBA. You had playoff experience in the NBA. Uh, where does that? What does the mentality fall when it comes to early season, mid season, and making that playoff push towards the end of the season?
It depends on the team. It depends on the team and the makeup of the team. Some teams like an OKC, when Denver won it, they needed to be the number 1 seed. They needed to
Mm,
have home court advantage all the way through because they were young and they were trying to figure out, even though Denver had been through some losses before in the playoffs, they needed that home court advantage.
right.
OKC needs that. A
Mm-hmm.
Boston, maybe not.
Right.
But I think what's important, each team is different. Okay. Some teams are so mature as a team that being number 2, a number 2 seed is okay
Mm-hmm.
because they figure they can tool up and win a game in the conference finals on the road to get home court. Now that
Right.
number 2 is very important too because I think it's only been 10 teams that have been outside the top two that have won a title, okay,
Oh
seeding
wow.
wise.
Okay.
And that's important because if you're three, you're going to have to play, that first, number one seed in the second round,
Yeah.
okay? So you want to be two to be able to avoid the number one seed into the Eastern Conference Finals. So
Right.
what you
Okay.
do during the regular season is very important.
Mm.
That if that's your goal and you feel your team has to be that one or two, you can't let games slip away. You,
Mm.
you,
I
you
see
got to
that. Yeah.
position yourself unless there's a matchup that makes sense.
Right.
Like when Golden State beat the Mavericks that year with Matt Barnes and during the course of the season, they had success against them.
Right.
So
Okay.
to a lot of people, it was a surprise, but they felt they matched up well in that matchup.
Right.
Okay, unless there's a scenario like that. But typically, you want to be able to have home court, through those first two rounds,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the 1 and 2 seed.
Right.
From
And
from that perspective, with regards to really competing for a championship.
right. And going back to '93 when Denver Nuggets beat the number one Supersonics.
Supersonics, yeah.
Number 8, Denver Nuggets beat the number one
Mm-hmm.
Supersonics, and that was a team that Supersonics had trouble with throughout
During
that
the
season.
regular season.
Right.
Exactly.
So Denver felt that we can beat this team.
Yep.
They beat that team, but they didn't go nowhere after that. But still, the point was that they had the opportunity, and they knew they had the opportunity to beat them because of how they played them during the regular season. Denver was a
But,
team who would push the limit.
right. I tell you what, and I don't know, 98, our lockout year in Portland, we may have been, I think we were the higher seed that year. So it doesn't equate, but we beat Utah to go to the Western Conference Finals.
Okay.
But Utah was a foe, but we matched up better. I'm trying to think. I think we were a higher seed because we beat them in Portland. So it's kind of not the same because we were the lower seeded team and they were the higher, I think, that year. I have to go back and look at it though. But
Okay.
we felt confident despite them having Malone and Stockton during that lockout year that we could compete with them, the
Right.
mindset wise.
Yeah. 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 Now, we talked about the Eastern Conference. That's my conference. I love the Eastern. To me, Eastern Conference has always been the top heavy. Kind of weak at the bottom, but top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Western Conference is more of a dogfight. When you talk about Denver, OKC, uh, Dallas, even Golden State can throw Golden State in there. Phoenix,
Minnesota,
Minnesota,
Phoenix,
yes,
yeah.
right. So those are teams that they're dogfight throughout the whole season. Where do you and now I want to throw in the Clippers and not so much LA, but LA can be in that dogfight sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So where do you see that Western Conference stacking up?
Well, the preseason, the coaches and general managers, they picked OKC, Minnesota, Denver, Dallas, the top four teams.
Okay.
Okay. I think Dallas has a shot with, depending on what Clay does with his shooting,
Mm-hmm.
could maybe leapfrog Denver. Another year with Daniel Gafford in camp, PJ Washington, camp, Kyrie, another year in Luka. I just think they did a really good job of kind of filling out.
Yeah.
Derek Lively has another year
Yes.
of filling it out. I truly believe in the Western Conference, you got 10 spots. That's the 6 playoff and the 4 play-in.
Mm-hmm.
14 teams can compete for those 10 slots. The team
Yeah.
that's on the outside looking in really is Portland. Utah can still be competitive, from that perspective.
Yeah.
San Antonio is going to be competitive somewhere. They're going to say
Mm-hmm.
they're going to jump from 22 wins to 40, but maybe they jump 8 wins, 9 wins, and do something. So, Clippers, yes, you lose Paul George,
Right.
but I think what you gain is a clarity of roles.
Yeah.
I think the way the Clippers are going to play a little bit differently is a really more defensive mind to create turnovers because with Derrick Jones Jr., with
Mm-hmm.
Terrence Mann out there, you have defenders that can guard multiple positions. So it's, Kevin Porter Jr., I think when he gets into it, he's a great, phenomenal offensive player. I think a lot of the bad habits he created in Houston working with Ty and the coaching staff, he'll be able to kind of work through those. Having Nick Batum back, another defensive player, ball mover. So the Western Conference, what I'm saying is tough because it's not
very
just
tough.
heavy at the top. It's deep all the way through.
Yeah.
Injuries going to play, I think, a huge role in that. Memphis coming back.
Yeah, Memphis, yeah.
Now, starting the season, injuries. G.G. Jackson is out a little bit. Jaren Jackson Jr. is out. Vince Williams is out. So that impacts how you start the season. So many unanswered questions, so many moving parts. We know where Memphis used to be. Can they slot themselves back up and get in the top 6? So, I mean, it's the beauty of it is health, how quickly a team can, with new faces, can assemble together to get that second half run, and where they're in a position where they're above 500 and they're pushing towards, it's going to be interesting. Man, that's why I love it, because we can pick it now, but you don't know.
Right. And that's why I mean, I'm an Eastern Conference guy, but I love Western Conference basketball.
Yeah.
It is a dogfight. It's not predictable.
Yep.
Now, mentioning the Lakers. So they have LeBron. They drafted Bronny. Do you feel that the expectation of where Bronny is basketball-wise, physically on the court, is too much? Because I say this because I think it's too much. The expectation is too much because he's still in his developmental stage. He was not a phenomenal athlete in high school or in college. So he's still in his developmental stage going into the NBA.
But let me ask you a question. What's the expectation?
The expectation I'm hearing is he should be better than this person. He should be better than other rookies coming into the NBA because of what LeBron has said about him as his son. But people are misinterpreting what LeBron is saying about Bronny.
Okay, but that's them basing that off of LeBron's. But his expectation, to me, I don't think a lot of people inside NBA expect that. He was a 51st pick for a reason.
Right.
If the expectation was higher, then he would have been drafted higher.
Right.
But I look at it through this lens. Can Bronny play? Yeah, he can play. Does he need time to develop? Yes. Will he be a great teammate? Yes. Does he has a high IQ for the game? Yes. Can he be in that Tony Allen mode? Guys like that D up, that lock up, that can give you something? Yes. But time will only tell. Nobody knew that Derek White was going to be Derek White.
No.
Nobody knew Tony Allen was going to have a career he had.
No.
Bruce Bowen.
Right.
So all of this stuff about what a player can and can't be, we've seen in the past that if you go with the right program, you can develop. Now, again, caveat is those guys were older when they came in the league. But Bronny is getting firsthand experience.
Yeah.
Now, the key will be, that's why you have the G League. So he's not sitting on, or a player like him is not sitting on the bench. He has time to go play.
Right.
That's the benefit of having the G League. To play, to make those mistakes, to live like a pro, and hopefully grow your game. But to me, I don't know what expectations people think. I measure him from a prism of, this is the kind of player I see him as. He has a lot of growth and development, but the mold of who he is, he's a great young man.
Yeah.
Now, whether he sticks, there's a lot of factors involved in that. That's my expectation.
Right. And I say expectation is there's a lot of chatter amongst bloggers, podcasters, people who really don't say, have much to say about what goes on in the NBA. But this is what they're saying about Bronny. To me, like you said, he is in a great position to make a great player of himself, if that is where it goes. He's in a great position to be the best player that he can become. If not, oh well.
Yep.
So you as a basketball player growing up in Toledo, Ohio, expectations were Jimmy's going to be one of the greatest to come out of Toledo because of how you performed on the court. Going into Ohio State and then getting drafted number 3 to Dallas. 4 to Dallas. Alonzo Mourning was number 3. I'm sorry.
Christian was. Christian Laettner was 3.
Chris
Lonzo
Layden
was
was 3.
2.
Lonzo was 2. Shaq
And
was 1.
Shaq was 1. All the
Right.
same.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it. It's all good.
But you as a player going into that situation, what were your expectations? Feeling
Mine?
yes, as for yourself.
Going into the league.
Yes.
Well, I knew I could play with the guys because I played with pros growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that wasn't a major concern of mine. It was the unknown. You're dealing with the unknown. Yes, you're drafted by the Mavericks. You haven't been successful. Where do you fit in? How do you win? How do you grow? All those things. I wasn't worried about playing. Could I play?
Right.
That wasn't. I would work hard enough. I thought I had the game enough to be able to have an impact, and I did early before my injury.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I held out, no camp, and played 28 games and averaged a little under 17 points. The next year was 19. Next year was 26, 25, 26. Right. I knew I could play.
Yeah.
But it's all the other stuff that comes with being a professional athlete. This is not on the court, it's off the court. Those are the things you got to deal with. Those are the unknowns. People can tell you about it all day long, but until you actually experience it. So my expectations were, I'm going to be the best that I could be on the court, you know, to assist and try to help the Mavericks win. That was my expectation. All-Stars, rookie, I couldn't do all that because my rookie year I was holding out. So right. I couldn't have expectations of an all-rookie team or whatever. I couldn't because I was holding out. So it was, to me, it was very minimal. I kept it laser focused on things I could control, but I knew I could play.
Now, going into the podcast world, you have the new podcast, the Jimmy Jackson Show. This is something that me and my people around me were saying this should have happened. Like Jimmy has the voice. Jimmy has the knowledge, the voice, and the personality, the attitude to be someone who can have a great podcast. What made you make that decision to say, okay, let's do this?
It wasn't made by me. Rich Eisen had hosted a show a couple of times. He said, Jimmy, I've started a production company, and iPods, being able to have podcasts are a part of the essential business model.
Okay.
Would love for you to think about joining us and starting a podcast. But I had thought about this back in 2017 with a former agent of mine that I wanted to get into the space and talk about basketball. And as I get into the podcast more, it's lifestyles, basketball, it's entertainment, it's all kind of stuff, travel, but with like-minded individual guests, conversations. But I wanted to do that in 2017.
Okay.
But my agency dropped the ball, never really took it serious. So during that time, the explosion of podcasts had already taken off. This was before all of that. I took it to him back then.
Wow.
So it's not like I haven't thought about it. It's just that I thought the space was too crowded. I thought it was too saturated. But with talking to Rich and the team and what they could do, this is a full-fledged production company. This is full-fledged, every marketing behind the sponsors. It's everything. So I said, now I'm a little step ahead. Let's try it. I know a lot of people have a great intuition of what conversations could be, the ability to listen more important. So I said, fuck it, let's just go. Let's go for it.
Yeah, and like I said, I've been a fan of your broadcasting since you started doing broadcasting. So stepping into the podcast world is like, this is something I can listen to because you have a voice, not just in sports, but like you said, you talk about lifestyle, politics, travel, entertainment. So I appreciate how you present yourself on the podcast.
No, I appreciate it, bro. It's going to be fun. We're just getting started. Just take the third one today, actually. Jim Jackson Show on IG. You can get it on YouTube as well with Mateen Cleaves. It was like a brother of mine, bro. It was really good. It was deep. It was good, man. It was good. So check it out.
I'll check it out. And people can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio,
Spotify. The full version of the podcast, video-wise, YouTube.
Okay.
We have, I'll be posting clips on the IG page at The Jim Jackson Show.
Okay. This is a question I ask every guest when I talk about basketball. I ask this question to everybody.
Okay.
Who are your favorite top 5 players in NBA history.
Magic, Michael, Kareem, Bird. I'm old school.
Right.
That fifth is always the one, bro. Because that one, it's like I go in and out because it's some current players that I love to watch. I love watching Steph. I love watching Bron. I love watching KD. You know, I love watching Tim Duncan play. Just from a fundamental, I love watching Shaq play. Oh, God. Those top, I'm going to stay with those top 4. Everybody else I can filter in.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that.
You got it.
Thank you for being a guest on my show. Like, I appreciate you. You've been a supporter of mine since I started the last podcast, the Rise and Grind Morning Show.
Yep.
You're our first guest on that show. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do these shows with me.
I got you, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really
We'll catch up down the season too, man. Enjoy it too. See what happens with
I will. Yeah,
your Cowboys and my Steelers too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching this episode of Play by Play. You can visit us online at winnerloseshow.com, all on social media at Win or Lose Show, and on YouTube at Win or Lose Show. See you next time.